which is a good idea. A little of that needs to happen. That's an update on what is happening in Boston. And we'll have some of the live coverage from earlier today that will follow us in some other developments. The election campaign in Nicaragua, in Venezuela, Comandante Nicolas Maduro's, I'm rushing here to get his name in. Anyway, nonetheless, he is now the president of Nicaragua, sworn in Caracas, Venezuela. So students were out protesting. As usual, we'll have more of this on BR on the World, but nonetheless, he is now the president there, and they will move on, and we'll talk more about that event there and some more things on the world. But the dominant story, obvious in the U.S. here, is what happened in Boston. Maduro, he got 50.66% to Enrique Capriles at 49.7. So it's less than 300,000 votes, but remember G.W. Bush won by less than 500 votes, and he was elected president of the U.S. And so it goes. On a day that will remain in infamy in Boston, it's tarnished the proud history of the Boston Marathon that has been over 100 years old. This is Boston Red on the 13th day of April 2013 on the Boston tragedy, and as L.A. Bill Graham of Newark, New Jersey would say, peace out, good day. We shall continue with this story later today. This is Boston Red Live. The American Sugar, Crystal Sugar Strike, the unions there finally voted. 55% voted on that was Saturday. There were 1,300 workers there. About 50% of them had or have retired. Jim Risky, he's president of the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers and Grain Millers Local 167G, said they would start to integrate the workers back into the workforce. And they were locked out by this cooperative during the strike. So, nonetheless, this is in the upper Midwest, the Dakotas, and Minnesota, around Moorhead, Crookston, and East Grand Forks. So, roughly about 400 or 500 workers will return. The trade unionists will return to work there, and it'll be a long process of integrating these people back into that workforce. I'll do it for that part of it. And also today on the commodities front, since it was covered when we referred to Alex Jones, gold today, this is Dubai Gold, dropped 125.20. It's now down to 1360.80, and on its way down, that's a percentage of 8.1%. And let's go on to some of the sights and sounds today from Boston, and this will officially take us out. We'll have more on this Boston story on our international program, Boston Red on the World, later today. So these are the sounds today from Boston, and good day. Remember, gold went down, and we've talked about numbers, man, our financial program, that gold was one of those commodities that has always been a commodity. It's not a very good financial hedge, and what happened here was some of the institutional investors were advised by Goldman Sachs and others to move out of gold. And old libertarian Ron Paul of Lake Jackson, Texas, was evidently heavily invested in, so he's probably losing a lot of money. But gold went up, gold went down. It's like anything else, like buying beach balls. Here we go.
Lost someone, or they had someone in the explosion, and she said, yes, my daughter, we're trying to find her. So apparently they're going from hospital to hospital. See, someone else is coming in right now. I see someone going in on a stretcher. He is sitting up. Quite chaotic inside. A lot of nurses and hospital personnel have been called in to help out, and we understand also a description from someone who was inside and talking to some of the staff here said that there are a number of people here with very severe injuries. So that's the scene here at the Boston Medical Center. The situation inside described it as mayhem and quite chaotic inside the hospital as well. That's the latest live from Boston Medical Center. I'm Byron Barnett.
So that's live coverage that our viewers in Boston are receiving from WHDH. Just a terrible day and what should have been just a magnificent day for the city of Boston, the annual running of the Boston Marathon. Mike Gleason, with apologies. Mike Gleason's an NYPD veteran who was just a spectator today, had a member of the family running in the race. And Mike, I guess since you saw this, do you have any reason to add anything to the descriptions thus far? We are now able to see it recorded by live TV cameras, but did your trained eyes catch anything? Did you detect anything amiss?
No, it just everything was normal. Everyone was relaxed and happy and joyous. Everyone was drinking their water and wrapping themselves in foil, and then an explosion right next to the finish line. And then within another maybe 30 seconds, another explosion, and then pandemonium struck.
I mean, I don't know if you heard me saying, and I hate to say this, but this is how it's done overseas. An initial and a secondary, just as people are rushing toward the wounded from the initial explosion.
And my worst concern, Brian, was we had my two children, my friend's two children. We put them into a Sprint store. They were kind enough to let us in there. And then once we were able to get moving, we wanted to get away from any area where there was a high concentration of people.
Yeah, it's sad to say, but people who have any exposure to military or law enforcement are often prompted to get out of there instead of doing what is human nature and rushing in to help only because of the risk of a secondary explosion in this cruel era of such things. But it looks like there you have, that's again the best picture. Right there, the powder burns against the side of the building, and then again the reviewing stand. Mike Gleason, thank you very much. We have the first facts from this from the Boston Police Department, and this is pretty grim. Boston PD is reporting by Twitter, 2 dead, 22 injured. And again, 23 now, 2 dead, 23 injured. Again, we know from eyewitness reports, from what we've heard on our Boston station, some of these injuries are grievous injuries consistent with what happens when an explosion goes off in a tight urban area. Look at the facade of that building. You had people between that building and the police barricades, and then you set off an explosion, and this is what's going to happen. Flags, banners gave way, people were hit, and look at human nature. Run toward the explosion. That's right when the second one went off in the space of about 15 to 20 seconds. Of course, a lot of these people, not only is it their job, it's their reflex. These are public safety officials. These are race volunteers. A saving grace, most of the police officers you see with the bright green vests are also in this day and age wearing Kevlar vests. So let's hope that there are Boston PD members who were able to survive this and help by dint of that, but it's something to think about. Maybe it made the difference in a few cases. This is Patriots Day in the city of Boston, commemorating Lexington and Concord. This was the day of a Red Sox game. Fenway Park is about a mile and a half away from this. The closest intersection, what we're talking about here, is Boylston and Dartmouth. In Boston, we had a picture across the Charles River showing the smoke plume from these dual explosions. Again, no one has said anything official. It will take forensic testing of the residue from the explosion, but there are certain accelerants and certain explosives that will immediately tell investigators this was not a gas main. This was not a kind of naturally occurring explosion from the systems contained in a large American city. This was an explosive that was put there to do harm. We don't know that yet. It is just quite a coincidence otherwise that we have two concussive impacts here on the finish line of the Boston Marathon. Again, the aerial pictures from our NBC station, WHDH-TV in Boston, where they will continue live coverage. All shifts have been called to work, goes without saying. Boston PD. Let's listen in to some of the eyewitness reports our station's getting.
I don't think they could even comprehend what's happened here. People reported hearing two explosions a short time ago near the finish line. I think we've already established that, but you can just see the emotion on these people.
This is the audio that goes with these initial aerial pictures, so this is totally early.
Has been used for a very unexpected and horrible tragedy. But as we've said over and over again, just moments after this explosion happened, the first one, response was immediate. I want to recap for you again what we saw, because we actually saw the explosions from our vantage point. We were in the truck. We heard the first one. We saw smoke coming out, and at first we thought it was perhaps some kind of cannon that was celebrating this marathon and not something that was devastating. We're running this video now that was taken by my colleague Don Nelson, who was manned on the bridge over the finish line. You see that bridge that they build every year in order to get all the runners coming across, that overhead view of the runners. He caught that explosion, and again, from eyewitness accounts, they saw two packages or bags, as someone described to me, against the building near 671 Boylston Street. That's a little bit more than halfway down the block from Dartmouth towards Exeter on the Newbury Street side. Again, those two explosions happened very, very close together. And then a little while after, another eyewitness who was frantically running in the other direction told me that he felt that he had heard that other devices had been found. That was something I could not really report initially since this was unconfirmed. But then we heard that third explosion that was later confirmed to be a controlled explosion. And indeed, that was another device that was found. At this point, we have still not had official comment from law enforcement. They are still too busy dealing with this case. We're expecting, as you know, that news conference come up at a short time later, but we've been reporting the numbers. Very devastating, the number of injuries and deaths from this. And that is delayed from where I am right now in Clarendon at Stewart Street. Janet, 7 News.
Janet, I want to just touch upon something you said. Just leave the two that went off at the finish line of Boylston. There was a third device that they found, and that bomb technicians did a controlled explosion. They set it off themselves. So, but it leads us to believe in this note that we read earlier that there may be more devices in and around that area, which is exactly probably why police moved you in part and is trying to clear that area out of here.
Well, Reed, now I can tell you, because before I did not feel comfortable reporting this, but initially, right after that explosion, maybe it was a reporter instinct, I went tearing down Boylston the opposite way to go to the library grandstand, because that's where I thought it was. The explosions happened right across from it. I went into the grandstand, saw the location, and saw the blown out windows, and a police officer came up to me and said, "Get out of here. We don't know what else could happen. And at that point, I have to tell you, I was terrified.